What's going on, folks? This is Colion Noir joining you for another great episode of CN Live. And we're just going to jump right into it today because I have a very special guest, somebody who I hold near and dear to me, somebody who I had multiple conversations with over the course of my I guess you could say, firearm journey. Joining me is the Kenn Blanchard. What's going on, Ken?
Brother, thank you for letting me be on the show, man.
Oh, man, anytime. Well, I've been telling you anytime, but you know, schedules here and there. And I mean, you've been doing this for, and I call you the OG. So
yeah, it's true. It's true.
So talk to me, man. How did things get started for you? How did you venture down this road of being the black man with a gun?
Started out just trying to be a good citizen. I wanted to be the firearms instructor in the neighborhood. I wanted to be the guy that just in case you bought a gun, you wanted to know how to protect your family and make your kids safe. I've learned a lot about training and teaching, and I knew that everybody doesn't respond to the operator, to the hardcore Marine, to the police officer. Some people like a more educated response or a softer response, and I was able to adapt. So I thought, I got my niche. I'm going to go out here in the community and help save some kids. And I had no clue that the community I was trying to help didn't want my help. Yeah. The community I was trying to help was terrified of guns, had a whole bunch of bad information, and they had been conditioned for 400 years. And I was like, dang, I can't even do this thing. So I got to start from scratch. I got to educate them that they have the right to do it, and then maybe somebody else in the future will be able to take them where I'm trying to go. And it's been since 1991 that it did it. Started out, again, trying to be a trainer, couldn't do it. Had to go and become an activist first, and now I'm coming back around.
So I want to kind of go in a little bit more into the whole notion of you started off trying to help the community, but didn't necessarily want your help in a sense because, like you said, they were filled with a ton of just misinformation in general, and then dealing with the residual effects of pretty much our racial past in this country. What kind of things did you face? Like, what was the one thing that really stood out to you in terms of the biggest hurdle to kind of reaching out to the community and talking to them about the Second Amendment in the way that you wanted to?
The first thing that hit me was the fear. It's kind of like if you've been conditioned that a hot stove will burn you, as soon as you get near a stove that's on, you kind of go around it. That image that guns for a black person were extra bad. I didn't know that was such a big deal. That really messed me up. Even my mother, we grew up in the same household. My mother was the original single mom, had me right out of high school, and then dropped me off with my grandmother. And my grandmother had a loaded shotgun in her kitchen. But when I got home and I got grown and I was trying to do this thing for gun rights, my mother quoted some really baffling, wrong information about guns in the home and guns and kids. And I said, we got the same mama.
Yeah.
Grandma's shotgun was right there next to the stove, and all these grandkids, nobody got hurt. She went, oh, yeah. And I thought, if it's in my own household misinformation, I got a long road to hoe.
Yeah. So, like, we more or less come from two different generations. And I understand, I have a certain perspective on the outlook of how, for instance, young black men in a firearm look. What was the image back there at the point when you really started out? As far as the idea and the notion of a black man owning a firearm, or just blacks in general, just black gun ownership overall?
That was an eye opener for me too. There was I didn't know what I didn't know. I had to learn almost about sociology with this thing. There was always the black hunter. The deal was, though, the black hunter didn't tell you that he hunted. He hunted on private land. He didn't explore. He didn't. It was like a secret community.
Yeah.
If you hunted. You kept that to yourself. You hunted on your property. You didn't go out. You didn't do it. You didn't advertise this stuff. The other person in the black community that was an armed person would be law enforcement or a veteran. And then, again, only in that circle. If you weren't in law enforcement or a veteran, you come back from Nam, from Korea, from World War II, then you talk about it. But only, again, to that community. We had a thing where it was almost like don't ask, don't tell. We had the most undercover brothers, and they were all armed. That's where that thing came from. It was the culture. If you got one, don't tell anybody you got one. And that whole thing actually caused our troubles.
So what do you think was the biggest and I'm kind of asking you this question, knowing in many ways the answer, but it's always good to get a different perspective on the answer. What do you think was the biggest driver of creating that kind of undercover culture in the community when it came to firearm ownership in the community?
Protection, just survival. When you've been conditioned that if you talk about guns, you might get your gun snatched from you. You might get arrested. There was just assumed that you were a criminal. There was no the good guys wear a white hat, not a black hat. It definitely didn't say pew pew life. So it's the whole mentality was different. And knowing that, you had to be careful with who you're around because somebody might rat you out.
Yeah.
You got a people who were used to, if they told you you had a gun, they could just snatch you out of the house and hang you from the nearest tree. Yeah. So when you got that conditioning in your system, it messes up some people.
You know, it's interesting because I was the segment I did yesterday. There was an article in the Boston Globe. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Basically, what it said was the more that black people start owning firearms, the more likely that black people are going to die as a result of it. And you just brought up a notion about the idea of living in a time where just having a firearm could get you hung. And so now we're living in what is supposed to be kind of a more progressive time period. And I'm still hearing personally the same type of rhetoric that basically tells me, but it's almost flipped now. It's kind of like, before they didn't care. They still understood the importance of having the firearm and understanding what it did for their protection, even facing the odds of them possibly being killed for it. And then here we are in 2016, and I'm still dealing with the same rhetoric that tells me I shouldn't own a gun because if I own a gun, there's a big chance that you're going to get stopped, pulled over, and the cop's going to assume you're a bad guy and shoot and kill you. So therefore, you shouldn't own a firearm. And so it's not even so much that I want to get into the merits of whether or not that's happening on a consistent basis, but the fact that it's used to kind of sway me away from the Second Amendment is interesting to me. I would think that rhetoric would have changed by now, and it would have been a little bit different. You understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah, totally. But it's even worse because that same rhetoric is used politically, socially, culturally. Oh, we don't eat that kind of food. Yeah. I mean, you can hear that with pumpkin pie. Somebody made me mad just recently. They was like, I don't eat no pumpkin muffin. We don't eat that. I'm thinking, where are you from? This is like, you can't be an American. You have to be in this niche thing. And there's a whole culture of people trying to keep you in one spot when you got the whole world.
And, and I want to talk to you about the whole black man with a gun. Why did you decide to go with that as kind of your it's not a facade, but basically who you are and how you presented yourself to the world as being a firearm advocate?
As I started working with the National Rifle Association, the Cato Institute, the Second Amendment Foundation, local groups, I was that black guy, that armed black guy. And then I learned that words matter. Yeah. And I realized that the last time somebody had put the words black, Negro, and gun together was Robert F. Williams from the 60s. And I thought, all right, as a homage to that dude, Negroes with Guns, I'm going to make the next book, Black Man with a Gun. And I had some really great web people back in 1999 when everybody was worried about Y2K. We had this gigantic website that took like 20 minutes to load, and it had James Brown music, and it had a scary image of me with an MP5, and I had Old Glory behind me just like I do now. And I was going to undo the culture by brainwashing people. I was going to make it, after you hear this word 1,000 times, maybe you won't be so sensitive to it. And I thought one day, when nobody cares, we'll be free. Yeah. But that ain't happened yet. We still going crazy.
You know what's funny about that? It's like people like to give me a lot of credit for what I do, and in many ways, you've been doing it for years before I even decided to get into firearms. And so I'm just here now in the age that I'm in, and took advantage of the platform of the advancements in the internet to kind of get my voice out there as much as possible. The interesting thing about it is I find I get vilified more being a young black guy, pushing out the notion of Second Amendment advocacy and firearm ownership, holistically, not just saying, oh, black people only, you need to own firearms. I mean, just from a holistic standpoint. But even from people in my own community, sometimes I get critiqued from the standpoint of, why are you doing what you're doing? As if I'm the bad guy. Like there's something wrong with what I'm doing, and necessarily don't even want to hear the message. So largely I either be ignored or be criticized to the point where it's dismissive. And so did you experience any of that coming up while when you started doing what you were doing?
Oh, absolutely. I even got it from the church. Right when I was writing my book, I thought, well, everybody respects an author, so I'll write a book and I'll use the book as a prop. I'll take this thing around and I wrote it while I was a janitor in the church. I'll write this thing and the church will let me, at least I'll sell it 200 copies in here, and then maybe I can move from this point to the next point. And it worked for about 5 minutes. Yeah. They were like, Kenn's an author. Yeah. What's the book on? Black man with a gun. Oh. Nah. Well, how about the second part? The second part says a responsible gun ownership manual. And they thought, okay, we hear you, but we don't hear you. And some people pulled me to the side and said, yo, man, I'll buy a copy, but don't tell anybody tell my mother that I got a gun, or don't tell my wife I got a gun. I thought we were still stuck in the same place.
Mentality, yeah. Yep. So we're gonna take a quick break. I wanna finish on that thought, but when we come back, so we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back and finish on that thought.
Tenfold.